Welcome back to Savage 911. The goal for today is to get this car back on all four wheels and on the road. So there are two main things we need to do. The first one is the front suspension. I've test fitted it here. I'm going to actually set it up on the ground because I can torque everything more easily out of the car and then insert the whole assembly back in and bolt it down along with the shocks and everything. So that'll get the front suspension set up. That's part number one. Part number two is body, so welding this replacement wing panel in where I've cut out and zinced the old one, and some combination of fiddling with the guards to get that right, and then front and rear bar to get that right. And then if I get all that done, we're almost ready to go back on the road. So that's pretty exciting. Let's see how we go. First part is getting this steering rack set up. So the key tool is this Unicore 32mm crow's foot wrench, because that needs to get in here, which is actually not easy because that's 8mm gap, so you need a thin one but strong enough to torque this turbo tie rod to 70 Newton meters. First, I'm going to put some of the blue thread locker onto the tie rod, the inner tie rod, torque that down both sides. Then I'm going to lube up the steering rod here with some bearing grease and move that around, make sure that's all good. And then I'll have to put some under here as well just to get the boot, which has got to go, this bit's got to go over all of this, and then this spring clip has to go over that end, and then there's another smaller spring clip on the other side, which I might actually just zip tie. So we'll see how we go with that. And then obviously the ball joint goes on the end of the outer tie rod. So then I'll also tighten up these ones underneath, and then I'm going to put the sway bar on, which should hold these control arms in place. I don't want them popping out. Remember, they're currently zip tied on because they're under a bit of pressure. So that's the next step. Now I'll turn it this way, and then I will scrunch this boot over. I've lubricated around here a little bit just to get this boot over, and then that ring needs to get, I'll use the screwdriver to hook it over that into that groove, and then I'll do a similar on the outer side. There, little screwdriver work did the job. That looks good. Now this end can go onto, this end can go onto the outer tie rod. Okay, so we've got the left control arm. We have the left torsion bar. I'm gonna put a lot of this grease on it, slide it in, put the cap on, just this, and then hopefully that'll prevent any corrosion and I can get them back on the car. Okay, well that was pretty much a straight up wrestling match. It's positioned under the car on the wood, hopefully protecting the paint. I got the jack ready to go to jack it up. The straps are holding it in. You can see I've got the sway bar in the bushing, dielectric grease on that, so that's good. The zip ties are still on here, so cutting this is next. And I've got the sway bar bushes on at the back as well. I need to screw that in. And so I think we're ready to put the bolt in and getting ready to raise it up. So I've got my jack underneath. I've got it positioned. You can see I've got to kind of thread the steering rack up into that gap, past the fuel pump and the brake master cylinder. The block of wood is helping me kind of just keep it in position and line everything up. Make sure the tie rods are not hitting the calipers. It's a very slow little inching process. And of course I've got to keep this angle right as well. If these things drop down too much here, then it changes the angle of the steering rod. So I need to keep that up as well. Lots to do. So we have the suspension mounted up. It is secured at the back, and then I've just got one bolt in each side at the front. Still need to drop in the control arm, ball joints, and replace the shocks. It's looking great. So much cleaner than before. We've hit some drama. As you can see, I am covered in some green fluid. That is the shock fluid that is contained in these Bogue struts. It is some mixture of coolant, hence the green, and some other fluid. I wore it a little bit. I knew it was going to happen. I had the tray under it. I caught 90% of it, but I did wear some of it. So the problem, however, is this Bogue strut is externally threaded. Now remember, this is a 71 car with a 76 or so turbo engine. So I'm thinking, yeah, I'll get the Bilstein B6 inserts for the Bogue struts. That's what everyone does. That's the well-worn path. However, when I pulled this apart, I realized the Bogue strut that I've got here has an external thread, and the Bilstein insert that I bought also has an external thread. So that does not work. And so what it turns out is there is an early and a late Bogue strut. The early strut, pre-April 85, has this is correct for. And you know, being a 71 car, I assumed it was the pre-85 shock. Turns out it's not correct for this car. This car has 86 Bogue struts, which have a different thread. And from April 85 till 89, it needs this lock nut, which has the internal lock nut. So I bought the wrong shocks and I had to buy the correct ones, which are these ones. So that is a learning for me. It's not actually very clear even on the Pelican side or on the forums or anywhere that that's the case. So anyway, I've got the right one now. Let's get it on the car. I'm not going to use the green. This green disappears into this tube, and then I will put this guy over the top. You get rid of the little rubber washer thing, you don't need that. So I'll put this over, which I did paint already. I'll slide this guy in, tilt this out. Okay, got it. Fantastic. All right, that worked. To get the alignment of the wing panel correct, I actually bolted it to the front left quarter, put the quarter on the car, and then marked some lines exactly where I wanted it to be welded into place. Then I welded it in, and at the same time welded some tabs in the tail lights to help mount up those. Once I was happy with all of that, I ground down all of the excess welds, got it all kneaded up, and then I ran the seam sealer around through all of the gaps. And the seam sealer just helps to keep the water out from between the panels, and that stops rust or something else creeping up inside the gaps. I'm not going to stone guard it for yet. I'll do that with the paint later. So now I can go on to torquing down all of the suspension. It's my fancy new Vivor torque wrench. So 60, yep. Okay. 66, and it's nice because as you ratchet it up, it beeps and then it finally vibrates as it hits torque spec. So pretty convenient. Now I'm going to do these cross member ones, and I can check. It captures the peak, so I can see Right, getting close. Up to 52. Beautiful. Torqued. Well, the ball joint lock nut had its final revenge. I got it on. However, I absolutely smashed my thumb, torquing it down to 250 Newton meters. So I was pretty happy when that was finished and I could move on to the fuel tank. And the fuel tank had a few patches of rust, so I needed to clean it up, metal prep it, and then I could stone guard to get the right texture in the areas where I had to grind it back to the metal. And then I actually found this Rust-Oleum smoke gray color, which is a really nice match for the original color. And then finally some new rubber seal, and I could put it back up into the car. When I bolted up my front quarters, they lined up nicely to the wing panel, so that was awesome. I could move onto the bumpers. And I've got front and rear bumpers, both fiberglass, RS at the front, RSR at the rear. I got some long hood mounts, however, I remembered that I'm using a G-body front cut still, so I had to make my own mounts with some aluminium tube and aluminium backing plates and get it all mounted up. Well, I almost got there. I'm pretty happy to have the guards on, the hood on, bumper on, get the wheels on with the front suspension. That's awesome. So what I haven't done yet is the rear bumper, because that actually needs some fiberglass mounts fabricated into it, which I will do next. But other than that, it's pretty much ready for paint, which is awesome. Can't wait to get this back on the road and off to the paint shop. And so hopefully that'll be the next video. So thanks very much for watching, and I will see you at the paint shop soon. Bye.